Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our community Bible study. We are continuing to profile individual people of faith, and today we're going to talk about the story of Naomi and Ruth. You will find their story in the book of Ruth. There are 4 chapters. We're going to cover them all today, and this takes place in the day of the judges, which we have talked about a couple of judges, Deborah and Gideon. And so this is in that time frame. And the story is, Naomi is a woman from Judea and from Bethlehem in Judea. And she has to deal with the same things that people did with when you have famines and problems. And then the interesting thing is Judea, of course, is like Bethlehem, that's in Israel. Where she ends up migrating to is across the Jordan River into what today is Jordan, the kingdom of Jordan. And in the Bible, in that time, it was referred to as Moab, was that section that was nearby. So, the story of Naomi and Ruth, chapter 1. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech, his wife's name was Naomi, and the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites, was their tribe, from Bethlehem in Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. And that's just tragic and colors the whole story. Well, verse 6. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, meaning back in Bethlehem, she and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she'd been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness, as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands and to me. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud and said to her, "We will go back with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and gave birth to sons, would you really wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me." Well, let's stop here. You can hear Naomi's sadness and grief, and maybe even a little bitterness. God has taken away her husband. She has lost her 2 sons. And in those days, women, the culture is the women depended on the men for their livelihood, for their property, for their protection. And so Naomi is grieving badly, and part of her sending her daughter-in-laws back to their land in Moab was, first of all, I think that it was practical, because hopefully their families could help take care of them. And Naomi had really no hope of being able to do that, so she was looking out for them. And I also think that she was probably grieving so badly that she was just like, don't come with me. I've been cursed. Life is not good. I can't stand to see you suffer. Go back with your family. So that's kind of my idea of what's going on here. Well, back to the text. At verse 14, at this, they all wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. So Orpah returned to her home. Ruth did not. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. And this is one of the famous passages in Scripture. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. This is Ruth telling Naomi, her mother-in-law. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Then she goes on to say, where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, even if death separates you and me. So she was committed to staying with Naomi no matter what. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her to leave. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women exclaimed, can this be Naomi? Remember, she'd been away at least 10 years, probably more than that. Don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. Boy, Naomi was really suffering. I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth, the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Now, we know in Israel there were 3 major harvest times. In the start of the spring was the barley harvest. The start of the summer was the wheat. And then in the fall would be actually a lot of things. Corn and wine were especially harvested in the fall time. So those are the patterns. So she was coming at a good time, the beginning of spring. Chapter 2. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side, a man of standing from the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz, B-O-A-Z. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Now, part of what happened is, they evidently, Naomi had a piece of land that was left from where they used to live there. I don't know if they're staying on that or not, but they had no income, they had no food, and women were allowed to go and glean the leftovers in the field after workers were doing the harvest. And most of the time that meant you might get some pretty good barley or wheat or whatever the season was around the edges of the field, or you might be able to pick up some in the middle of the field as the workers left them. Either they were sloppy or they weren't the best part, or they had plenty and didn't need all of it. And so it was common that women who had no other means were able to glean in the fields and at least gather a little bit, depending on how generous the workers probably were. So here Ruth is saying, I'm going to go out and glean the barley from the fields. Naomi said, go ahead, my daughter. So Ruth went out, entered a field, and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. She ended up in the right place. Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you, they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to?" Because he didn't see her before. The overseer replied, "She is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, 'Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters.' She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter." So she clearly was working hard to try to get as much as she could to provide. So Boaz says to Ruth, "My daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field, and don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting, and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you." Now that brings up another point of how vulnerable a woman like Ruth or even Naomi would be if someone decided to attack them or to take advantage of them. And so safety was really a big thing. So Boaz says, "I've told the men not to lay a hand on you. You'll be safe here. And whenever you're thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars the men have filled." Now, most cleaners didn't get that privilege, I don't think. So at this, she bowed down with her face to the ground, and she asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Now, Boaz was obviously a kind person. He was trying to look after Naomi at the very least. Was he attractive to this young lady named Ruth? Well, that might be a part of the story as well. I'm sure that probably was. But you remember that all the laws that extend from the Ten Commandments for Israel include how one accepts foreigners and travelers and makes a way to take care of people in need. And Boaz seems to be showing that kind of character in his life. So let's see, verse 13. "May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord," she said. "You've put me at ease by speaking kindly to your servant, though I do not have the standing of one of your servants." Throughout this book of Ruth, the terms that describe Ruth as she has come back with Naomi show a progression. First, she's a foreigner. Then here, she's saying, I'm lower than even your servants. And as we go through the story, we will see that how she describes herself continues to rise in her view and in the society that she's chosen to stay in. So, verse 14. Later in the day at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come over here, have some bread and dip it in the wine vinegar." So he's extending some extra care. When she sat down with the harvesters, he offered her some roasted grain. She ate all she wanted and had some left over. As she got up to glean, Boaz gave orders to his men, "Let her gather among the sheaves and don't reprimand her," meaning if she wants to get in the middle where you're harvesting, let her do that. Normally you wouldn't allow that. Even pull out some stalks for her from the bundles and leave them for her to pick up, and don't rebuke her. So Boaz is like, let's give some extra. So Ruth gleaned in the field until the evening. She threshed the barley she had gathered and it amounted to about an ephah. I'm never sure how to pronounce that, but it's about the size of a bushel. So if you've ever seen a bushel basket of apples or oranges or something, then that's about the size of that. So she had quite a bit from the day. She carried it back to town, and her mother-in-law saw how much she had gathered, more than she expected. Ruth also brought out and gave her what she had left over after she had eaten enough. Her mother-in-law asked her, "Where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the man who took notice of you." Then Ruth told her mother-in-law about the one at whose place she'd been working. "The name of the man I worked with today is Boaz," she said. "The Lord bless him," Naomi said. "He has not stopped showing his kindness to the living and the dead." She added, "That man is our close relative. He's one of our guardian redeemers." That term describes a near relative who is willing and able to help take care of an extended relative in time of need. Part of the law provides for if a woman's husband dies, then his brother or someone else in the family have the first opportunity and even responsibility to step in and then marry, so that that woman would not be without help. That woman would be able to continue to carry on the family line in their children, and would not be destitute. And so Boaz was, a little further away. It wasn't like a brother, but he was the guardian redeemer, is how we've translated. Then Ruth, the Moabite, said, "He even said to me, 'Stay with my workers until they finish harvesting all the grain.'" And Naomi, I'm sure, was just overjoyed. She said to Ruth, "It'll be good for you, my daughter, to go with the women who work for them, because in someone else's field you might be harmed." So Ruth stayed close to the women of Boaz to glean until the barley and wheat harvests were finished, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Chapter 3. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you, where you'll be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight, he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor." So whenever they harvest, then the winnowing is basically separating the grains from the stalks, and you beat it against something or toss it in the air and it separates. Naomi says, "Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor tonight, but don't let him know you were there until he's finished eating and drinking." Ooh, Naomi is like going to set up Ruth with Boaz. She,
He's
just
in a good mood.
Wait until he's finished. He's in a good mood. He's had his meal. He's had something to drink, a little wine. Sounds like a good opportunity. When he lies down, note the place where he's lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do. "I will do whatever you say," Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her. When Boaz finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I am your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he replied. "This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. for I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it's true I'm a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another who is more closely related than I. So this other person would have first rights. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, then let him redeem you. But if he's not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning. So Boaz is generous, and he appreciates that Ruth would consider him over some of the younger men. And he is willing to take care of her if that's what works out. So she lay at his feet until the morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, no one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor. Because he doesn't want to ruin either of their reputations. He also said, bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out. And when she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley, placed the bundle on her, and then he went back to town. So she had some more barley to take home. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, how did it go, my daughter? Well, she was out all night. Maybe there's the answer to that. Then Ruth told her everything Boaz had done for her and added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. Then Naomi said, wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens. For the man will not rest until the matter is settled today. So she is sure that Boaz is going to make good on what looks like is happening. So the 4th chapter, Boaz went to the town gate, which is where people did business, and sat down there just as the guardian redeemer he mentioned, that other relative, came along. Boaz said, come over here, my friend, and sit down. Boaz took 10 of the elders of the town, because they would be the witnesses for this transaction. Now, this is a legal, financial transaction, not just relational. And he said, sit down, and they did. And he said to the other man, Naomi, who's come back from Moab, is selling the piece of land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should bring the matter to your attention and suggest that you buy it in the presence of these seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, talking about the property, do so. But if you will not, tell me so I will know. For no one has the right to do it except you, and I am next in line. Well, he's thinking, piece of property, I will redeem it. Then Boaz says, by the way, on the day you buy the land from Naomi, you also acquire Ruth the Moabite, who is the dead man's widow, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property. At this, the guardian redeemer said, then I cannot redeem it, because I might endanger my own estate. You redeem it yourself, I cannot do it. Now, I'm not sure what this other man was thinking, but the hand of the Lord was on Boaz, so Boaz is going to get the chance. Verse 7 tells us something interesting. Now, in earlier times in Israel, when you redeem or transfer property, the final transaction wasn't a handshake or a notarized signature. One party took off his sandal and gave it to the other, and that made the transfer of the property legal. So this man said to Boaz, buy it yourself, removed his sandal, gave it to Boaz as a sign, I am not going to do this. This is your legal responsibility. Then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought Naomi, and I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon, the 3 men. I've also acquired Ruth the Moabite, Mahlon's widow, as my wife, in order to maintain the name of the dead with his property, so that his name will not disappear from his family or his hometown. Today you are my witnesses. And the people said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who's coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. Through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. So may you be as blessed as our ancestors were. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, "Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he be famous throughout Israel." Let us thank the Lord. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons has given him birth. So Naomi took the child, her grandson, and cared for him. The women living there said, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now that's significant because the lineage continues, and only 2 generations later is David, meaning King David. And you can trace all the way from Abraham through to the different people. And then there's Boaz. And had he not married Ruth, they would not have had the son Obed, who had a son Jesse, who had a son David. So Boaz was the grandfather, or great-grandfather, I guess, of King David. And so that's the story of Naomi and Ruth. And it is a one of Ruth's love and devotion to her mother-in-law, of being willing to come and be part of her family, and God honored that commitment and honored Boaz as being honorable in all of this transactions. He could have taken advantage, or he could have done a lot of things, and he did not. And so it's continuing the lineage of God's covenant promise from Abraham. And here is another generation that goes forward. It's always too good to remember how God is faithful to us, and the more faithful we are to him, the more the blessings we'll receive. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless you.